Welcome to Combat Sports Talk, a podcast dedicated to UFC and Bellator discussion, the MMA community, and combat sports in general. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and back by popular demand is tonight's co-host, John Keys.
Well, thank you. Big shout out to all 7 people that said they want to be back. I appreciate it. I will give you your money by Friday. Trust me. All right.
I will gladly pay you Tuesday for a shout out today.
Yes. But yes, it's good to be back. I appreciate it. Everybody that did listen to the podcast, they gave us great review. They loved it. Actually had a couple of fighters, that fight locally, expressed real good interest. They told us to keep it up. So, we're getting a little fan base here. So,
all right. That's what it is. Slow and steady wins the race. Hey, so
exactly.
So as much as you know that I talk trash about our friends over at the Red Crested Stepchild, that is Bellator MMA. Friday night's events. Friday night's events were about as perfect as you can get.
Yes, they were. All is right in the world. Last weekend was a very weird, but apparently awesome weekend for a lot of things. I mean, I think the whole chaos, the whole Loyola Chicago issue that happened at March Madness and floated over the entire month, I think we're getting the opposite effect now. Instead of chaos, order is coming. Okay?
So here's the thing. I need you, I know the Loyola theory, but no one else knows the Loyola theory. So I need you to share the Loyola theory with our listeners, because when you first mentioned this, I was like, no way, this is ridiculous. You don't know what you're talking about. And then as I watched more and more craziness unfold, I was bowing down saying, oh my gosh, Loyola screwed up everything. So yeah. Give us the rundown.
Okay, so the Loyola Chicago theory is also known as the butterfly effect, where, a butterfly wings flapping at one end of the world, at the other end of the world is causing complete, total chaos and, cyclones, maelstroms, you name it. Loyola came out of nowhere. Literally, it was the Cinderella team. They came out of nowhere and started beating people that shouldn't have been beaten.
This is March Madness.
By Loyola. Through March Madness, okay? And when they did that, they destroyed everybody's bracket. And weird things started happening, okay? We had a UFC event that just went completely bonkers at the end of the month.
Right, because you had, this was the fight that was supposed to be, Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. Then Tony got injured, which you were like, aha, this is Loyola effect. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then Max Holloway comes in, but then Max was ruled, ineligible to compete. So you're like, aha, a Loyola effect. And then it was, Anthony Pettis was out. Then it was Paul Felder wasn't ranked high enough. Then it was Al Iaquinta. And then he fought well. And you were like, aha, Loyola effect.
But it's not how. You're minimizing the effect. It wasn't that just Tony Ferguson had an accident. He had the freakiest of freak accidents. Okay, he was kicking poles like 3 weeks before. Okay, no injury whatsoever. He trips over a black cable and does almost the worst types of injuries you could have ever done to your leg. Okay, that's Loyola. Okay, we had Max Holloway. He came in. He was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm not getting off the treadmill before they do type stuff. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. The doctors looked at him that next day and like, no, you look like you're about to die. Okay, no, you cannot do this. And then we get raging Al Iaquinta, who everybody says is certifiable. He might be the Caucasian version of Crazy Horse now, in my opinion, after what I saw. So he went in there and gave Khabib a decent fight, So yes, Loyola all the way. Okay, somebody needs to get that tattooed. I might have to think about that.
All right,
the Loyola effect.
So we got through that, and now we are fresh in May. Today is May 1st. It's May Day, and
Happy May Day.
Happy May Day. And so what last weekend on April 28th, we got the Bellator card, which was Bellator 198, had 5 fights, 5 finishes. That's a perfect card.
Yes. And it was not just a perfect card. For 80% of it, it was a submission card.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
Finisher.
Yeah, 80% submissions. Yeah. But before we get into all of that, let's go ahead and make it official with the official decision.
The official decision.
This is the official decision. This is where we recap the fights from this past weekend, and we're going to be recapping Bellator 198, which took place in the Allstate Arena, Rosemont, Illinois. It was Fedor versus Mir. So there were 5 fights, and the first fight of the night, Dylan Denise defeated Kyle Walker via submission in round 1, a toe hold. When was the last time you saw a toe hold submission?
And the way he turned that foot, the way he turned it, it was like crank, crank, crank. You're going to give this, either you go home with it or I'm going home with it. And, unfortunately, the fighter got smart. He tapped out. Good call. It was a clean submission. I'm impressed. But the antics that Danny is doing afterwards is kind of questionable. Somebody called him a poor man, Conor McGregor. Things of that nature. But, that's another story altogether.
All right. Neiman Gracie defeated Javier Torres via submission. That's a big surprise. A Gracie winning by submission. This was an arm triangle. Round 2.
Oh, yeah. Gracie, arm triangle, anybody who thought that a Gracie wasn't going to win this one via submission, I question your sanity at this point.
But do you just decide that, hey, listen, I am not going to go down to the ground with this guy. I'm not going to even allow him to get close to me. I'm going to keep him at range, try to kick him, try to punch him, and not go down because he's a Gracie. Not many Gracies win by, knockout.
Except for one, the alpha dog monster that they call Hickson.
Yeah.
Okay. Even then he would beat them up, and then he would just wrap their heads in a rear naked choke, even though they're already out. That's what a Hickson would do. So even then he wouldn't do it. But yeah, it's just one of those things. You say, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. You're going to do it. Okay. It's a Gracie. A Gracie in the ring equals it's going to be some ground time, and you're not. And once you get on the ground, unless you are a high level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, BJ Penn type ace, you're not getting away from this one. Okay, I felt sorry for the guy, but hey, you went down with the first family of grappling, so
yeah,
you don't go too bad.
If you're gonna get submitted, you get submitted by someone who's got the pedigree of submissions. If you get submitted by Joe Blow off the street, you should kind of be embarrassed. But you got submitted by Gracie. Put that feather in your cap. Rafael Lovato Jr. defeated Gerald Harris because John Salter actually withdrew from the fight. So Gerald Harris had to step in there, and he got submitted via armbar. Emmanuel Sanchez defeated Sam Cecilia via submission in round 1.
Yeah, that was brutal, man. I was like, wow.
And then the main event of the evening, Fedor Emelianenko, the last emperor, defeated Frank Mir via knockout in round 1. It didn't take long.
No, it did not. And once again, the world is right. Like I said, weird, but apparently awesome weekend. Okay, because just to watch it, it wasn't just. I don't know if it was a combination of one or just a lot of punches behind that. Fedor went in there and did what he did. The original Russian. Well, no, I cannot say that he's not the original Russian. Okay, I'll tell you about that later. But the last emperor went in there like he always does. He got hit, he got clipped for a little bit, but he recovered quickly and tried to knock that beard, that chin hair that Mir has, try to knock it off. He didn't, so he just beat it out of him. All right, and I'm happy. Okay, if I could, I wish I would have put some money down on that. But
so here's the thing: is I watched this fight and. Mm-hmm. I didn't see the punch that actually knocked Mir out. Like I went back and watched the replay, and I watched it again, and I I didn't see the punch. Like, he went down, and I saw they stopped the fight, and Fedor is whooping up on him and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, but what punch actually landed?
You know what? I think it was a glancing blow. I think it was something that stunned him, and Mir just tripped forward and landed, and Fedor was there to jump on his side and start wailing him with a bunch of lefts, I believe. I have to go back and look at it again myself, because once again, like you, when you mentioned it to me, I was like, you know what? I'm not 100% sure which punch it was either. It might have been a glancing blow.
I went back and watched the highlight, and so there is a little short uppercut that catches Mir, but even, I mean, it doesn't take much to knock someone out. So I recognize that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just looking at that uppercut, and it just doesn't seem like that would be enough to knock a heavyweight out. It did.
Yeah, I think it stunned him more than anything.
Well, that's all it took.
Yeah, it's like one stunning blow, he trips forward, and Fedor's there waiting on him.
All right, well, let's go ahead and close the book on this one. Let's put it on the shelf, because this card is history. And let's look at the next segment that talks about the headlines that are making waves in the MMA world in the wake of the action on Friday night. So this is called Finding the Angles.
Finding the Angles.
This is Finding the Angles. This is where we look at the headlines and the topics that people are talking about in the UFC, Bellator, and around the MMA world. Our first topic of the night, Cam Soda Legends. It's a new promotion. It's put on by an adult website. They put on their very first MMA event.
I don't know what the PG rating is on this show, so
this is a PG-13 show, so that's why we're going to call this an adult website.
Right. We do not. I don't think we are soliciting or advertising for CamSoda.
No.
And to go out there and then watch. We are definitely not doing that.
No.
Okay. But if you're above the age of 21, yeah, CamSoda Legend. Let's just leave it like that.
So here's the thing: this is a train wreck. It goes about as well as you would think an MMA event put on by an adult website would be. When you think about, you have ring girls, and we've talked about, from time to time, the how ring girls have kind of become obsolete. Really the only reason why people have them is because of, their appearance. Then you take it to a whole nother level of just inappropriateness when it's put on by an adult website.
When we're done recording this, I'm going to go back to, I want to hear this whole part again, because there's no way we could really describe it,
You can't.
like we are, but you can't, okay?
But,
for obvious reasons. But
yes,
you're right.
But it's like there's really nothing redeeming outside of the actual fighting that takes place in the ring. There's really nothing redeeming that comes out of it. That the announcer is actually vulgar and making obscenities while he's interviewing the fighters. You get the fans decide whether or not you get tipped, which is a good thing. But then the person who gives you a tip, they read the names and it's vulgar names. It's like, has MMA, like, this is like the worst that MMA could possibly be. Like, we have now set the floor for how bad MMA can get.
That was and that was previously held by Future Fight, where men and women, it was gender mixed martial arts fighting, and it was bad. Okay, and if you ever, if you want to see what the previous holder was, which I advise you not to unless you're into that sort of thing. If you're a true adult and do not believe that a man should ever put his hands on a woman or anything like this, you will find this a very hard video to watch. But Cam Soda, give it to them, they outdid you. It took them about 20 years to do it, but they outdid you.
You get the Golden Shovel Award because you dug deep.
Thank you.
You hit bedrock
That's what I bring to the table, man.
I'm just saying. I'm giving Cam Soda the Golden Shovel for digging a new low.
Oh, okay. Absolutely.
Well,
and let's hope this is a one and done.
I hope so too. So the only reason, so why would we bring this up? This is not the typical quality that we would bring up unless it has Colby Covington's name on it.
Oh.
Colby Covington got into an altercation with one of the fighters during the during the event. One of the fighters, and this is a long-standing MMA fighter, Charles Crazy Horse Bennett, who's been in MMA forever. Pride.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the guy was, think Michael Venom Page, but 15 years ago.
Wow, that's good. I was thinking Old Dirty Bastard from the Wu-Tang Clan actually got into MMA, and you have Charles Crazy Horse Bennett.
Yeah, but
he's a decent fighter.
But back in the Pride days, I mean, when you talk about someone who was unorthodox, who was fast, who was able to knock people out, that was who he was.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. Yeah. He does look like ODB.
Yes, and this one, Kobe's got to know where to go and where not to go in life. I mean, I understand he's doing this. He's doing this train he's gotten on the Chael Sonnen train, but he's in the caboose for all I care. And he's doing it wrong. He's doing the right things the wrong way.
But it just goes to show how unprofessional Colby Covington is as a professional fighter. And Platinum Mike Perry, he and Platinum Mike Perry showed up at this event. They were there.
Mm-hmm.
They're at ringside. I guess they were talking smack. Charles Bennett, after he got knocked out in his fight, comes out of the ring, starts jawing off with Colby Covington, and then takes a swing at him. And it's like, Colby Covington, do you understand that you have an interim title fight with the UFC coming up in about a month, and Charles Bennett, who is fighting in a promotion that is put on by an adult website, you're going to get into a fight with that dude? Clearly, he's got nothing to lose.
Some people will not learn.
I mean, I'm just saying, if he would have thrown a bottle, if he would have hit Colby Covington with a chair, if his friends would have come in there and started a brawl, like, Colby Covington, this is your chance. This is probably the closest you will ever get to gold. And you're going to ruin it because you're going to talk smack at an adult website MMA fight with a dude who just got knocked out? Really? Is that your idea of professionalism? I can't even conceive it.
And that's why I say this is where he went wrong, because you gotta. I don't know why he would do that. First of all, apparently he thought he can get up on one with Crazy Horse. It's not
his
going to happen.
His name is Crazy Horse.
This man, this is not one of those names that we just gave on the way out of the ring. He earned that name, okay, and he is very good at what he earns, okay. So, that's a downplay for you, Kobe. Do better, okay.
Better.
Actually, do better and be quiet, okay.
Sit down.
Do better and be quiet. Yes. Well, I don't want him to be humble. Okay, you don't have to be humble. Just be prepared to back up everything you've ever said, because that's what it basically comes down to for me. Okay, I understand there's a certain brand. There's two types of martial arts. Okay, there's the ones that eyes low, mouth shut, be humble, and do what you do best. And then there's those that like to talk a lot of smack, but they can back it up. Okay, if you're going to talk a lot of smack, that's fine. But don't be whiny and anything like that. Be prepared to back up everything you say when you walk in that ring. when you were picking a fight with Fabricio Verdum, that was not a smart move. Okay, the man clearly has an advantage on you, and you're going to talk smack to him. I understand the whole bravado, machismo thing. Don't let it get you killed. Okay, there's a reason why that your fight isn't happening in Brazil. It's happening in Chicago. Okay,
right.
And even then you're not safe because guess what? Chicago has a large Brazilian contingent there. Okay, so you're getting what you deserve. Be prepared to fight in the ring. That's all I'm asking. Okay.
All right. So let's move on. Nick Newell gets a shot at the UFC. So Nick Newell, we covered him on the show probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. Nick Newell is an MMA fighter who has encountered some challenges along his career. He had a I was gonna say a condition. Let me just start there. A condition where he he is missing part of his arm. So he is, wrestling and fighting at a high level in MMA, and he is he has a disability, but it hasn't stopped him. He is 14-1, fighting in Legacy Fighting Championships, and he finally is getting his due. That was what he really wanted. He wanted to fight in the UFC. He wanted to test himself against the best in MMA, and that in order to do that, you've got to go to the UFC. And so, as a result, his fans got behind him. Everyone started pushing, and he got a date with Dana White in the UFC offices to negotiate his opportunity to possibly fight at the UFC. And so we were all kind of sitting on pins and needles over the past weekend to find out whether or not they were going to actually give him a shot, and they are. They're giving him a shot at Dana White's Contender Series. His fight is in June, and if he wins this fight, then he'll get what he always wanted. He'll get to fight in the octagon for the UFC.
Oh, man, I'm about to turn into the bad guy on this one. Oh, man. Okay, so, all right, congratulations for Nick Newell, first of all. 14-0, hey, man, that's impressive on any level, okay? I remember Dana White sitting at an interview at one point. He said, Nick Newell will never grace my ring. But that's also the same man that said, I will never allow women in MMA. That's also the same person that said, Nick Diaz will never fight in the ring again. He's only kept one promise, and that was the promise of Paul Daly never coming back to the UFC again. Okay, that's the only promise he's ever kept. With that said, if Nick thinks he can go into the octagon, okay, and with his, let's say, physical limitations, okay, that hasn't really been a limit. And if he thinks if he wants to challenge himself, he will definitely be challenged. My only thing is that I don't want his opponent to feel pity, if you will. I want him to be treated as any other fighter, okay, and to go in there and do what he does. Now, if that's, I think, in my opinion, that Nick Newell, as impressive as he is, for safety concerns, safety reasons, I don't know if he should be fighting at the UFC because, like we've proven many times before, the US, there's all the other MMA promotions, and then there's the UFC. And in the UFC, this is it's the upper echelon. This is the cream part. This is the very best in the world, minus Ben Askren. Okay, that's what the UFC represents. If he can make it, okay, fine, excellent. I'm happy for this man. If he makes it for a championship, once again, I'm fine. I'm happy with that. What I don't want is his opponent to have any type of sympathy. for him. I want that opponent to treat him just like another fighter.
Here's the thing is, I don't think it's fair to Nick Newell to even suggest that his opponents somehow take pity on him. I think that once you get to a professional level, even where he's fighting, at more of a regional promotion like Legacy FC, these fighters, this is financial. If there was a limitation that you could exploit, you would exploit it, because at the end of the day, this is your career. This is money coming out of your kids' mouths, or food coming out of your kids' mouths if you lose. And the fact is that in general, everyone wants to make it to either the UFC or to Bellator. And so losing to Nick Newell is not something that you would take lightly. And so I would say this: a dude who's 14-1, a dude who's got his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He was his collegiate wrestling team captain, had 123 wins in high school. Nope. If you're sleeping on this dude, if you're pitying this dude, that's your own fault.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you better go hard or go home, because he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got something to prove, and he is one fight away from his dream. I pitied the poor guy he's coming into the ring against on June 12th, because we may see the most violent Nick Newell we've ever seen.
And I'm okay with that. Okay, I expect Nick Newell to come in there with his A+ or even S game. Okay, I want his opponent to do the same thing. No, in the words of Sensei Kreese, no mercy. Okay.
But that's the thing, right? Like, you should wish that for every single fighter. Nick Newell should be no different.
Mm-hmm.
Bring it for everybody. You should bring it. Kamaru Usman, no more 30%. 80, not even 80%. We want 100% from you.
Exactly. I need his S game too. Okay, I don't need his AAA game. I need his S game. Okay, and that's what I hope for. That's what I wish. I wish Nick Newell the best. Let it be said. I wish him the absolute best. And if these guys are slipping on him, that's on. You're right. You're absolutely right. That is on them. But I want to make sure that these fighters are understanding that they cannot slip on this man. Okay, do not give this man any type of sympathy once the bell is rang. You can be cool. You can be sympathetic to him all the way up to that point. But when that bell rings, when you get the fight, it goes away, and he's a dangerous opponent that's trying to take you out of that ring.
All right,
and that's what I want.
All right, I think you're going to get it, because, like I said before, if there is a fighter who's fighting at that level who feels pity or some type of otherwise concern for their opponent, then they need to seriously consider their chosen livelihood. You are in there to fight. You are in there to render your opponent otherwise unconscious or unable to intelligently defend themselves. And just because you drew the lot of having a guy who has a congenital amputation, then you should be licking your chops. You should be saying, this is easy money. It just so happened that the previous 14 people that Nick Newell thought was going to be easy money turned out not to find him so simple. So,
I agree.
Speaking of fighting, Ariel Helwani has gotten into it on social media with Nico Montano. You might not recognize that name, Nico Montano, because she is the 120-pound flyweight women's champion in the UFC. She has never defended the title. She won it as part of a new weight class in the UFC. Basically, the UFC doesn't even really represent it on its website. Like, she is nowhere to be found on the website. But you had a 125-pound female champion who hasn't defended her title since she's won it. And so Ariel Helwani posted a tweet that said UFC is losing patience with Nico Montano. As I reported last week, the plan was for her to defend the 125-pound title against Valentina Shevchenko in Calgary, but they are having a hard time getting a commitment from her. While it's not scrapped, they are now looking for other options. And he set off a bomb over there with Nico, because she responded on Instagram with a fairly aggressive and otherwise inappropriate, just direct attack on Ariel Helwani and the work that he does in the MMA community. And you have to see, it's a long rant, so I'm not going to read it all. Mm-hmm. But the term, basically what she said was the reason why she's not fighting is because she had a tonsillectomy and a bacterial infection, and it's been inhibiting her practice, and so she wasn't able to practice, so she couldn't fight, that she wouldn't be able to come back until May, that the UFC was aware of it, and then she proceeded to call Ariel Helwani all of the kinds of names and tell him that he is not good at his job. Any thoughts on that?
Yes. I think, I don't know if I will say it was part frustration on her part saltiness, or she just went straight personal. Because the first part of that rant was explaining herself, okay, explaining what the situation was, which any good fighter would do, okay, any fighter that's saying, hey, this is the reason why I'm out. After that, however, she went super personal, okay, and say what you will, he didn't sit there. Ariel Helwani did not go personal with her or her situation. He just said that the organizers are getting frustrated, trying to nail it down. But he did not say that she is faking an injury. He did not say that she was ducking out on these guys. He did not say a thing about that. And she took it like them fighting words. And I mean, if that was a dude talking to another dude, those would be parking lot words. Okay, what she said to him. But so in my opinion, poor form on Montano's part there, as far as saying, all the things that she said. And I do recommend anybody who wants to see how a champion is not supposed to act to look at that tweet, okay, and understand that you are a champion now. You have a set of standards. When people go low, you're supposed to go high. But he didn't even go low. He actually just kept it neutral, and she dipped in on him.
Yep.
And I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed with this.
All right. So here's something. UFC 227, Nick Diaz is coming off of his marijuana suspension. And so he's looking at a potential return in August at UFC 227. Are you excited about the return of Nick Diaz?
Yes. Hey, Thug Elite. Okay, we got him back. Okay, I'm curious to see who is going to be brave enough to go into the ring with this man. That's who I want to see, because let's put it out there. People duck the Diaz brothers. Okay. The Diaz brothers, they're at a point now in their life, they're like, they think in their mind they can pick and choose. Personally, the Diaz brothers, if they really want people to understand who they are, they should just put a blank contract in everybody's face and say, just sign it. I don't care who you put on there, just tell them to be in the ring and be ready.
Michael Bisping said he'll fight him at 195. 195 pounds.
I don't think Bisping wants that. He's not ready for a Stockton slap from the left. I'm sorry, he's not ready for that, man. It will be a bad day for him. He thinks, because people think that Diaz is taking all this time off and he's not sharp. The man is sharp as a whip. Okay, I do not see Bisping winning that one at all. Okay, because of Diaz's boxing style, Diaz's ground game. It's one thing if it's one thing or another. Between the brothers, you can definitely tell their style differences. Nate is more of a ground person. Okay, he can get on that ground and he can submit people. He's not that good of a striker. Nick, however, is the striker of the two. And if you really watch his boxing style, it's not the fastest boxing style, but it's definitely the most deliberate. Okay, and you don't want that for a person who has a sight disadvantage. Okay, you definitely don't want that because Diaz will pick up on your disadvantage and he will beat you to the ground with it. Okay, and he'll talk smack over you. So good luck, Bisping. Catch him at 195, and it'll just be that much more embarrassing. I had nothing against Bisping. I've watched his career. He has made me earn the respect I have for him, but bow out gracefully. If that's the last fight you want, that is not the fight you want.
All right, Derek Lewis, the Black Beast, says he'll fight Greg Hardy. He says he likes knocking out wife beaters. So we recovered Greg Hardy, former Dallas Cowboy defensive player, is making his foray into the MMA world. He's going to get a shot on the on Dana White's Contender Series to possibly make it into the UFC as well. Derek Lewis is looking forward to that. He's kind of licking his chops, saying that he would love to fight Greg Hardy and put a stop to his ascent into the UFC. So what do you think about his comment that he likes knocking out wife beaters?
Tasteless, but understandable. He's already knocked out one. You know, I guess he wants to call himself the wife beater hunter, I guess. You know, Derek, I understand he's a good dude and everything. Once again, he's hyping up his own train. I'm good with that, but, you know, don't go personal with this. That's a little extra personal, especially if the guy, you know, has a tone for it and, you know, he's trying to be a better man for it. You know, don't go slapping him in the back of the neck with his past like that. So, kind of tasteless, but, hey, you know, it's all up on Greg Hardy now. If Greg Hardy responds to it, or he says, well, I'll be waiting, you know, first match I want is with you once I get in. All
right, well, I'm going to tell you like this. If they do schedule that fight, Derek Lewis, if you can hear me, please wear a white tank top to the ring. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
For those of you who are uninitiated, that is called a wife beater. Hey,
all right. You know what? We'll find his Twitter and we'll put that on.
All right, okay, all right. We will do that. UFC to punish Conor McGregor after court case. So TMZ caught Dana White in transit, and they asked him if the UFC had plans to take action against Conor McGregor, disciplinary action against Conor McGregor. Dana White said he's got to be punished by the law first. So we'll see what happens in New York. So what are your thoughts on that? Because that's kind of like, I could see why Dana White would say that, but what we want to see is the UFC do something punitive to Conor McGregor.
Okay. So, you think, all right, and this is a question that posed out there to our wide audience here. All right. Are you guys expecting the man that had a hard time punishing John Jones, the man that sat there and refused to acknowledge that they were stripping Conor McGregor for the title all the way up to the day of? Y'all expect him to do something to Conor McGregor. We now understand why he waited all the way up to that moment to strip him, because he's crazy berserker. So I don't see Uncle Dana doing anything to Conor other than maybe a slap on the wrist. Maybe tell him, you pay this big fine. So, to the other fighters, take a couple of anger management classes, and we'll bring you, and you'll be okay. Yeah, I don't see anything heavy.
I think Conor is going to. So Conor's court date is June 14th. I think what's going to happen is they're going to go ahead and plead no contest, do whatever they need to do. Since it's Conor's first offense, they'll probably be able to get a tip-top lawyer. They'll keep him out of jail, try to retain his visa so that he can come back and fight in the United States. or they'll try to push back the actual court date until after, let's say, November, and try to put some type of injunction or something there so that they can get that fight between him and Khabib. And so what would happen is the UFC postpones their punishment of Conor McGregor until after that fight in November. He gets tried. Maybe he gets some type of 3-year, or I don't know, maybe even a 1 year in jail. Let's say he gets the 1 year in jail, or 18 months of probation. UFC gives him, after that fight with Khabib, if Khabib wins, then the UFC gives him a year, maybe even 6 months of suspension. If Conor wins, the UFC probably gives him less time so they can keep him active. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where I agree with you. I don't think the UFC is going to do much to punish Conor McGregor. If I was Mike Chiesa or Ray Borg, I would be upset about it. But what are you going to do? They're a promotion. They make money off of this type of thing. Hey, Fedor, after he knocked out Frank Mir. Actually, before he got knocked out, Frank Mir, because this actually took place before the fight, which I say speaks to a little bit of the credit to Fedor for being visited by the FBI before his fight with Frank Mir, and then coming in there and knocking Mir out with this little short left hook that he knocked him out with. I got this from the Chicago Tribune, but basically the agents were in attendance at the fight. It was actually on Saturday night, but because Emelianenko has photos with Vladimir Putin that he was signed to Affliction Entertainment, which was a fight league where our president Donald Trump had ownership stake, and so at some time Fedor was connected to an MMA promotion where Donald Trump had a stake with with other people. Affliction ended up folding, but guess who the chief operating officer was for Affliction Entertainment, where Donald Trump was a partial owner and Emelianenko was a fighter?
Who is that?
That would be Trump's attorney, Cohen.
Michael Cohen.
Cohen was the chief operating officer. And so because the FBI raided Cohen's offices, now you see that that even Fedor is caught up in this whole Mueller investigation. Sorry. So it's pretty amazing that before his fight, the FBI agents were there questioning them, asking questions. Now, they said that the FBI agents were very nice, that they didn't stay long, and so they weren't very disruptive. But it's amazing where you have this crossroads of, politics and sport coming together at this event.
Yes, unprecedented level. But I've had this. I'm in a bit of a conversation right now as far as politics goes in a different circle. But I will say this, once again, the coolness of Fedor to go out there, and he probably has some frustration, and he probably did a little anger beat on Mir, which I'm not mad at. Good job, Fedor. Hey, and but for Mueller, I mean, to see it on this end, and this is probably about as much politics as I really want to put on this podcast, Mueller's web is all-encompassing, okay? He is leaving no stone unturned. If Donald Trump drank a Russian Coca-Cola in St. Petersburg, he's going to find out. And he is just slowly but surely trapping him in, much like a game of jiu-jitsu. Okay, he is slowly but surely trapping him in to the point that he is going to have him in a position where Trump is going to, he can't defend it, and it's going to be a perfect win.
All right, we'll see.
That's all I got.
We'll see. I am making no predictions, but I will say that it is interesting that that every single connection is being investigated. That is pretty amazing that even here within our world of MMA, that the reach of this investigation has has its fingers into this event. Last story, Kamaru Usman has an opponent. It's Damian Maia. He's going to be facing him in Chile. I'm excited about this. This is the guy that I think Kamaru Usman should have been fighting anyway. I don't know how ready Damian Maia is going to be, but thank goodness that Kamaru Usman is getting an actual highly ranked fighter in the form of Damian Maia.
Yes, he wanted it. He's gonna get it, and I'm excited for this as well. I mean, Damian Maia is a belt tester. He's going to test Kamaru Usman's belt and to see if it's worth its color. And I hope Damian has learned his lesson. I hope he's improved his striking a lot more, and because he's going against a guy that will beat him. Okay, and on paper, I do not see Damian Maia winning this, just for the simple fact that the fight starts standing up. I do not see Damian Maia winning. However, the human heart, the testicular fortitude, that's an unknown variable. So we could easily see Damian Maia go for a strong shoot, take him to the ground, and own him, like a pair of socks.
Except for Kamaru Usman is an elite wrestler, and Damian Maia's striking is so suspect that it'll probably be touched by the Mueller investigation as well.
Indeed.
Indeed. So those are the headlines making waves in the MMA world. We got one segment left. Let's look at the fights coming up this weekend with a segment we like to call The Fight Card.
Fight Card.
This is the Fight Card, where we look at the matchups that matter this weekend. As we reported last week, there are no UFC fights until May 12th. That's Nunes versus Pennington at UFC 224, but Bellator doesn't have a card either. So let's just look at some of the less known promotions and see what they've got going on. Invicta 29 on May 4th in Kansas City, Missouri is featuring Sarah Kaufman versus Katharina Ledner.
Sarah Kaufman. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to see if I can find it, and I'm going to watch this and see what's going to happen. Invicta is one of those fight promotions that I often see the highlights, never see the matches, and that's a shame because, as we know, they get hungry down here in the regional action, and I like seeing hungry.
Right, and so Invicta is special because it's an all-female promotion. You can see it on UFC Fight Pass if you have a subscription. But Sarah Kaufman's former UFC fighter who made the transition back into Invicta, and she's really trying to rekindle that career and possibly make her return back to the UFC. So I don't really know anything about Katharina Ledner. But it's a main event fight, so it's worth checking out.
Indeed. So, I'm like I said, I'm always interested to watch regional promotions and see the up and comers. Hopefully Sarah Kaufman can scratch out a win, rekindle that fire that's in her, and let's see it make her march back.
All right. Legacy Fighting Alliance 39 in Dobson Arena in Vail, Colorado. This is the Hurricane Ian Heinzich versus Gabriel Zangief from Street Fighter 2, Checo. This is for an interim middleweight title. I don't know these fighters. I don't even really know this promotion, but they are fighting on May 4th. So may the 4th be with them.
Oh, indeed. And hopefully not the revenge of the 5th.
Ha ha ha, nice. Classic Entertainment and Sports, also known as CES MMA. They have an event going on at the Space at Westbury, New York. Renee Forte versus Matt Secor. You got a flash fight pick? Renee Forte or Matt?
Okay, we're going Matt.
All right, I'm going Renee. We'll check it out and we'll see if we can get a result for next week. See who was right. It's not, these are the promotions. These are the ones that are hoping. These are the fighters that are hoping to make their way someday into the big show, into the octagon, fighting in the UFC. And so, one of the things that KC, while he's absent, of course, but one of the things he was talking to me about is that we really need to start looking at how do we, put a little bit more light on these fighters who are trying to make their way up the ladder and into the larger promotions to become perhaps the next Chris Cyborg, the next Joanna Jędrzejczyk, or DC Cormier. These are all the fighters that are trying to do that.
So are you suggesting that we might have to do a fighter spotlight at some point?
I've always wanted to try to, tell the stories of fighters whose stories aren't being told. One of the reasons why I like the UFC so much is because we don't only know who's fighting, but we know who they are and why they're fighting. And I think that that's what really makes the action that goes on in the octagon more than just a carnal battle between two fighters. It's people who are fighting for something. And that's the one reason, that's the one thing that I've always said that I struggle to watch Bellator fights, is because I don't know the fighters, I don't know why they're fighting, and I don't know what relevance it has on the landscape within the promotion. And so once you're able to start telling those stories and you start caring about those fighters, then their fights matter more. I'm not going to say they don't matter, because anytime you step into the ring, anytime you sacrifice what you have to sacrifice to get ready to fight, that fight has to matter. But it matters more to me when I understand why you're fighting, who you are, and what it means to win when you do. So I think we should.
That's very good, and you're absolutely right. It's not about it's more than just about the two fighters in the ring. I mean, that's the one thing. If anything, if Bellator would actually pick up on that and actually tell the story of these fighters, I think it would that the machine itself would do its own work if you just let people know who these people are. Where did he come from? How did he get in fighting? Why did he get into fighting? And, I think we would get a much more enjoyable experience out of Bellator. Because right now, Bellator is no different than any fighting video game right now. You got two fighters that you've never heard before. They go in there, they got a crazy set of fighting moves, and that's that.
Yeah.
We need more.
Yeah,
we need more.
Exactly. I mean, you go to the website and it shows the fighters, it shows their record, it shows where they're from, and that's pretty much it. And no, I want to know more about that. Like, do something different, change the game, because the more we learn about the fighters who fight under that sign, the less you have to rely on people who wash out of the UFC to get the attention that you're looking for. The less Frank Mears you need, the less, I'm not going to say he washed out, but, Rory McDonald, Benson Henderson, all of these fighters who are actually bringing the eyeballs are people who used to fight in the UFC. Sam Cecilia was someone else who fought. You've got a lot of these guys.
Each one of those guys, the UFC has told us their story. Benson Henderson, his parents, his mom owned a grocery. He worked out of there. He wanted to be an MMA fighter so he can retire his mom. You have Rory McDonald, who is widely considered as the first person who ever trained straight MMA to be in the UFC.
Right.
He doesn't have a discipline, which made him such a dangerous opponent, because there's no predictability with Rory McDonald. And these are stories that make sense. Just little tidbits. We're not asking for this is your life. We're asking for just give us a starting paragraph, and let us build from there. Something that we won't see. If Wikipedia has more information on your fighter than your website, there's a problem.
There it is.
There's a problem.
Take notes, Bellator. The school is in session. This is something that we should probably turn into a heavy bag and make it official. But that is all the time we have for the show. Once again, Mr. Keys, thank you so much for your time and your knowledge.
It is a pleasure. Every time I talk to you, man, we could sit here and talk for hours. However, we got to break it down to 60 minutes or less.
That's right. That's right. So thanks again. I really appreciate it. We'll have to, we're getting to the point where we're going to have to make this thing official. We'll see if we can get 3 voices on the show.
Yeah. At some point, people are going to start talking, and, I don't want to seem like the side dude. Okay, that's what I don't want to become.
Okay, I understand.
But, because, I would definitely love to have you two on in one podcast, so we all three can really go at it. It might be another chaos effect. We might set off some things. But once again, hey, I'm down with a apparently weird but awesome podcast. That's what I would go for.
All right. So, for those of you out there, follow us on social media. On Twitter, I'm at CST Ryan. KC is at CST _ the letter K and the letter C. You can also check out the website at www.combatsportstalk.com. You can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Facebook, and Instagram. I have the handle at Combat Sports Talk. KC is at Push Pull Pray. We now have a merchandise section. We've got a new shirt coming out in about a week. So just keep checking. Search on Amazon for combatsportstalk.com. You can get the original logo tee. I will tell you that it is the Boom Rock'em catchphrase tee. That's KC's catchphrase. We've got a new t-shirt coming out in about a week. And we added a new section for live events. This is featuring me and my trainer, George Stallworth, G Money. I've got some ideas on how we can make those live events even more interesting. So just stay tuned on that. We'll get back to it on UFC 224 on May 12th. We'll have another recording, another opportunity to do something really creative there. So with nothing else, let's get out of here. Our theme music is composed by Scott McCurry at scottdeancountry.com. KC Onyebuchi produced our lead-ins. I want to thank you for joining us for another edition of Combat Sports Talk. For KC Onyebuchi, I'm Ryan Smith, reminding you to keep your hands up, your chin tucked, and throw bombs.